Chapter 30. Wakey, wakey, Whiffington. Lucy sat bolt upright. Her mind was racing, her heart pounding. Somehow, while staring at the shadowy nothing, she drifted off to sleep. It was still dark. Stars twinkled overhead as she looked around Camp Whiffington and saw that everyone had done the same. Everyone was peacefully snoozing away. Old Man Carvey was wrapped up in his fluffy dressing gown. Page Turner had fallen asleep with her nose in a book. Mayor Noying was snoring into his megaphone. All was peaceful. Lucy sighed as she glanced down at her sleeping parents. Although her plan hadn't worked, she'd succeeded in one thing, bringing her parents back. Not just back from the Woleb, but back together. She looked at their happy, sleeping faces, and even though their eyes were tightly shut, she knew there was love in them. But that wasn't all Lucy saw. She leant in close for a better look at her mum and dad's eyes. Her heart leapt. In the corners were the unmistakable little crumbly drops of dozy dust. She quickly glanced around at everyone else. They all had dozy dust in their eyes too. Slowly she raised her hand up to her own face and wiped the corners of her eyes. As she lowered it, her heart began beating so hard that she wasn't sure it would wake everyone up. There, on the tips of her fingers, were little nuggets of golden dozy dust. She looked towards the whopping great bed and a huge smile crept across her face. While they were all asleep, the enormous pile of Whiffington rubbish had mysteriously disappeared in the night. Just like magic, just as Lucy had planned. It worked, Lucy whispered to herself, grinning from ear to ear. Her smile was suddenly greeted by the warmth of the rising sun. It peeked over the tops of the 4 trees acting as giant bedposts and began chasing away the shadows. Lucy glanced around at her town as they lay snoozing, blissfully unaware that her plan had worked, that Lucy, the kid, had found a way for them all to live together in harmony, that, despite their differences, it was possible for human and creaker to coexist. As the sunlight melted the night, replacing shadows with the warm orange glow of morning, Lucy looked at the last remaining spot of darkness beneath the giant bed, where 4 pairs of twinkling black eyes quickly disappeared into the world below. The end. Okay, so that's it. Story over. I hope you enjoyed it. What do you mean, what happened next? I've already written the end. I don't think I'm allowed to write anything else after that. It's the rule. Oh, all right. Maybe just a little bit. Epilogue. Tomorrow. Grunt, Guff, Scratch and Sniff creaked back into the Woleb, dragging with them bags and bags of glorious Whiffington rubbish. "Look at all this mucky mess we got," cheered Guff. "More than we've never snatched before," yelled Scratch. "And we didn't have to do hardly any creaking," added Grunt, sounding quite amazed. "All this disgusting garbage just sitting there for us to snatch, just like that," croaked Guff with rotten delight. "All thanks to the kidderling," said Sniff happily. Grunt stopped suddenly, causing the other Creakers to bump into him. He turned and stared at Sniff, looking deep into his round black eyes. No Creaker had ever said a nice word about a kidderling before. They were so used to hiding from kidderlings in the shadows beneath their beds, sneaking into their rooms and creaking around their houses. Being nice about a kidderling was something new, something strange. "His brain must be rotted," laughed Scratch nervously, worried that Grunt was angry at Sniff. "He just needs a good slop at the tavern." "No," Grunt whispered. "Sniff be right. If it weren't for the kidderling, this place would be all sunburnt and we'd all be dusted. She saved us." He gazed with astonishment at Sniff. "And Sniff saved the girl. That means Sniff saved us." Sniff kicked the ground with embarrassment, not knowing where to look. Guff and Scratch were stumped. Things were changing in the Woleb, changing for the better. "And looks," went on Grunt, "we got enough rotten mess in one night to last us a whole week." He pointed at the huge pile of smelly prizes they were hauling behind them. "We's not be needing to creak up there every night like we used to," agreed Sniff. "We's be able to—" "Spend more time with our creakerlings," Grunt interrupted Sniff, which took Sniff by surprise, as it was usually him that did all the butting in. "Perhaps kidderlings be not so bad after all," Sniff suggested. They dragged the heavy load of Whiffington rubbish deep down into the depths of the Woleb, clawing out rotten gifts to Creakers they passed on the way. They gave Mrs. Blister boxes and boxes of broken eggshells to rebuild the Creaker school that had crumbled to pieces in the Woleb quake. "No, thank you," she cried as she accepted them excitedly. Sergeant Gurgle and Major Curd, 2 Woleb police officers, siphoned all the curdled off milk to use as fuel for the Woleb police cars. Claggy Maggot and Maggie Clog, owners of Maggot and Clog's grocery store, collected all the banana peels, mouldy vegetables and fish bones to sell in a week or so, once they'd matured a bit. Eventually, Grunt, Guff, Scratch and Sniff had delivered all the rotten delights to the hard-working Creakers of the Woleb below Whiffington as they rebuilt their weird home. There were boos and hisses as the 4 Creakers passed through. It was a real hero's welcome. Grunt had been deep in thought, his mind turning something over as they creaked through the town. Suddenly he leapt up to the top of a heap of rot and motioned for the crowd that had gathered to quieten down. "Fellow Creakers," he bellowed, and the hundreds of slimy black creatures hushed and listened. "We be starting a new time. We be rebuilding ourselves a new Woleb." The crowd booed in agreement. Grunt continued, "And this new Woleb needs a new king." Silence fell. Grunt stood atop the pile, looking as powerful as a Creaker could look. "Grunt for king! Grunt for king!" the crowd began chanting. Grunt held up his hand and silence fell again like magic. "I would be honoured to be your king," he croaked, and the crowd booed in celebration. "But," added Grunt. The booing was instantly replaced by confused whispers. "But I thinks this new Woleb needs a king with new ideas. A king with a new way of thinking," Grunt boomed, staring into the eyes of his fellow Creakers. "Someone who's not afraid to be different, who stands up for what he believes to be right." He turned and suddenly pointed his claw at a Creaker behind him. "Someone like Sniff." Gasps erupted from the crowd as all eyes turned to the small, boil-covered Creaker standing in Grunt's shadow. "Sniff dared to trust the kidderling when no one else did. He dared to be different. It was Sniff what saved you," cried Grunt, as he dropped to his knee and bowed his bald head to Sniff. There was a pause as hundreds of Creakers stared at this teensy Creaker. Then, one by one, they dropped to their knees and bowed in respect to their new leader. He was the one who had helped to save the Woleb. Sniff stared out at his disgusting kingdom and let out a little excited squeak. Grunt announced, "All hail his rottenness! King—" "Sniff!" Sniff blurted out, interrupting Grunt in utter disbelief. The Creakers had a new king. "Well, that be it," said Grunt, handing out the final scraps from the bottom of the last rubbish bag to Guff, Scratch and King Sniff. "Takes whatever's left home for your families." "See you tomorrow," Guff said, his bottom releasing a little parp. "No, not tomorrow. I thinks we'd be all right taking a little time off from creaking," Grunt smiled. "That's if the king approves." "Oh, yeah," Sniff stuttered, trying to get used to the whole King of the Creakers thing. With that, Grunt gave the 3 of them a little salute and left them standing in the twisted Woleb tunnel. He creaked all the way along the winding spider leg and didn't stop until he was standing outside a dark crack in the wall of the Woleb, the entrance to his home. The foul stench of stewing sprouts filled the air, and he took a deep sniff of his wife's awful cooking. "Home, sour home," he sighed, as he stepped inside and was greeted by the most wonderful sound in all the Woleb. "Daddy!" The end. Again.